The Red Tide Massacre, 2022, directed by John A. Russo, starring Susan L., Sam Schweikart, and Rich Sands. An escaped convict gradually mutates into a bloodthirsty monster after coming into contact with toxic algae and goes on a killing spree. Can local authorities stop this aquatic menace? This modest horror film has more going on than appears. On the surface, it seems like an indie horror film with relatively unknown actors. It feels like a throwback to 2000s low-budget horror films, but with a nicer camera and makeup. My suspicions were that this isn't a deliberate aesthetic choice, though. The shocker comes from discovering who directed this film. Research revealed that John A. Russo co-wrote Night of the Living Dead with George Romero in the 60s, meaning this plucky indie film was helmed by someone who's been involved with film for over 50 years. That said directorial filmography isn't exactly full of Living Dead caliber genre classics. An interesting revelation, but more an interesting side note than something to keep in mind. Now, this is supposed to be eco-horror, but it honestly forgets to be this for 90% of the film. Being a landlocked Midwesterner, I didn't even know what red tide meant until I googled it. You won't come out of this clamoring for environmental preservation. The film's logic establishes that something toxic algae, something mutating the escaped convict. But let's be honest here. This film is actually about one of the coolest modern Creature of the Black Lagoon designs, in all its universal lawsuit-avoiding glory. Said creature effects were done by relative industry newcomer Nelson Cooper, whose work will absolutely be looked out for in the future. Where the film comes up short is the human side of it, with relatively generic and one-dimensional characters and rigid blocking that prevents them from feeling real enough for you to care about. This isn't a slight to the cast in any way. They honestly didn't have much to work with. Zach Kozlow gives the only standout performance in this film. He really brings an energy to his scenes that the rest of the performances lack, which makes him a welcome presence during his limited screen time. The pacing is weird too. There's literally an entire subplot about someone's insistence that the murders are actually being committed by a skunk ape that ultimately goes nowhere and could have been cut from the script. Nevertheless, the casting and pacing choices can be forgiven. People watch these kinds of films for the monsters and the attack scenes, and that the film has down in spades. Verdict: recommended. There's nothing fishy about this film. Give it a watch sometime. That concludes this week's review. If there's any obscure sci-fi or horror film you'd like to suggest, feel free to leave a comment below. Make sure to tune in next time for another thrilling, low-budget adventure.